or a bird spirit. Similarly, we'll start with the analogy of the embryo. We all know that the way we remember the conception we talked about yesterday, the way the sperm comes, it gets in contact with the ovum, gets attached to the uterus wall, and then it grows to be the embryo in the womb. All right.
Absolutely. Archana, just a minute so that people can get also a little bit more. And when you were speaking about the fire is signified by a triangle.
Yes.
Okay, and look at all the organs which are triangular in shape in your body, like liver.
Mm.
Is almost a triangle. Then we are looking at
Lungs.
lungs, which are like triangle. We are
Yeah.
looking at our heart, which is also like a triangle.
Yes.
It's like this.
Inverted triangle.
Triangle. So we have triangles in our body, which may
Mm.
not look like a complete triangle, but it does have a three-sided picture.
Similar move. Yes. Yes.
These are all fire organs. These are all organs which are constantly doing something.
Yeah.
Constantly they are doing, and they are doing, in Hindi it would be saying karta. They are constantly doing something.
Karam.
Yeah,
Yes.
constantly. And whether you get tired or not, these organs never stop working, because if they did, you wouldn't be alive. So
Yeah.
fire has to be always burning. And if you were
Always.
to connect that with the feng shui or with the vastu, they say that if the fire of the house is not good enough or it's misplaced, then you're going to have a lot of adversities in the house.
You have a lot of issues.
Absolutely. Similarly, these organs or fire that Archana is talking about, if they are misplaced or they are slower than or they are faster than, that means out of balance, it's going to create a huge problem in your body. Thank you, Archana.
Now, here we are going to talk about uh, one of the main characters in Gita. That is Surya Putra Karn. Okay. Uh, I just, Gita is teaching us so much about all these main characters that are there. And there is so much to learn from each and every individual. We discussed Bhishma Pitama. A part of Bhishma Pitama was left, which I would, talk about later, because today we are talking about Karn. Now, Karn was born outside the wedlock. We talked about that. He was born to Kunti, where she wanted to test this particular chant given to her by a sage. And when she was testing that, she had Karn born from the sun god. Sun is fire again. Similarly, we say that there is something inside our stomach, inside our belly. It's called the Jatra Agni, the fire, which is responsible for digesting anything and everything we eat. To share with everybody, let's all just sit and ponder on this. We are here in India. People are there in all over the world and universe. There are a lot of people who just eat meat. There are a lot of people who just eat veggies. There are a lot of people who eat mixed food. Just the variety, the dairy, the fish, it's endless. And do you know, we all, the way Krishna puts it across, we all are blessed with Atma. We have that soul energy. Similarly, that Atma has the fire element in it, the Tattva of fire, Agni in it, which is capable of burning anything and everything that we eat and converting it into blood, urine. All human beings, look at us, whatever we eat, irrelevant of where we are placed. Can you imagine the oneness in the diversity of the Christian consciousness? The beauty of eating anything from dry fruits to food to meat to veggies to, dairy, anything we eat anywhere over the world, all human beings, everything is digested, converted into blood, urine, stool, similarly. That is the oneness.
And it doesn't matter whether it's a warm country or a
No,
cold.
irrelevant. It has nothing to do with anything.
You know something that's really amazing what you just said, Archana, and what struck me, we could be living across the world in different temperatures, but
Yes,
temperature remains the same.
it does. It does. It does.
And
That is because of that fire inside us
exactly,
that is responsible for maintaining that temperature, come what may.
that's what I'm saying. Isn't it fascinating?
It
We
is.
could be in a polar region, we could be in the end of the south where it's really the
Or right next to the equator, anywhere.
right next to the equator or right next to the sea,
Anywhere.
but our body temperature remains the same, though the temperature across outside may be
Outside.
different. And that's
Yes.
such a beautiful thing that our body is saying. No matter what is outside, internally you need to be the same.
Yes. That is what Gita is teaching. That is what this element is about. It is one of the most beautiful elements. Let's talk about something. When, you know, uh, there is a theft in your house, the thief comes, it takes a few things and just goes away. If for some reason there are floods, the water comes in, the flood attacks, and things get destroyed. It's not a pleasant place to be, but it happens. But everything is not lost. God forbid if you are struck by the fire or lightning, everything comes down to just ashes. What I am trying to tell you, in the similar fashion, the humanity, the fire of living, the place where Sri Krishna is telling us that in this form of humans, the fire which is covered by the smoke of lust, there are varying degrees of lust on the fire, in the embryo, in the mirror. All right. Now, when it comes to the embryo, which we were talking about, the child is almost caged or jailed or bound in that situation. All right. It moves, but it's not free. There's no free will. What we talk in Gita, that Atma, that essence, is literally praying to God to liberate it of that cage, of that bandhan, of that jail, so that it can come out and do what the Atma was supposed to do. And there is just one aim according to Bhagavad Gita and Krishna consciousness, that we are the superior beings compared to the birds, beasts, trees, amphibians, fishes, or any of the animals, any of the other yonis that we are above. Yonis are the different levels of birth, rebirth that we come across. And we are blessed with the superiority of intellect, knowledge, and learning. That embryo wants to come out and attain all of the liberation that is provided by learning through Krishna consciousness. That is the only place where a human being can conquer its enemy and lust through the Krishna consciousness, and that can happen only when we are ably guided by somebody who is teaching us the ways to do it, to attain it. That is the beauty of the embryo and the womb. The second that we were talking about, let's talk about mirrors. When we look into somebody's eyes, there are times we see our own reflections, the aks that we call. All right. Now, the mirror has the beauty of taking on. The mirror does not show itself, but it shows what is peeping into it. It's just the reflection of it. Similarly, the whole world is just a reflection of what you are thinking. The world is not good, bad, ugly. It's not like that. It doesn't work that way. It is just a part of your reflection. Now, this is covered by a thin layer of dust, and you see and you realize that the reflection is not clear. Now, that dust can just be removed, because here we are talking about that dust is a certain degree of lust that is covering that mirror. So, when we look at the world with a layer of dust, a dust of, let's say, lust, greed, ego, selfishness, desires, maya, moh, anything, that layer, that dust does not let us see the true picture of the world. And one of the ways where Sri Krishna has mentioned that we can cleanse it, which they say in Kali Yuga is very beautiful, is the cleansing process is very simple. It can be done by any of the spiritual methods you decide. But the easiest and the simplest way of clearing and cleansing the mirror of the mind is by holy chants. They are the simplest of any kind of cleansing, because that is one way where you really don't have to make much of an effort. You're just chanting. And that chanting, it involves your tongue, one of the major senses. Second, when the tongue says something, you are bound to hear. It involves another of your major senses. So when the two senses are working, mostly it happens that when you chant, consciously, subconsciously, the third sense of vision, you tend to close your eyes. And that is the situation where you are converting yourself into a antarmukhi from a baharmukhi. That means you are basically converging all your senses like the turtle inwards towards yourself, whereas the tendency of all the senses is to be looking outwardly, bahirmukhi. You know, the eyes, when something is happening around, you don't have to tell your eyes to go and see. They automatically go and see. When there is some kind of sound or a disturbance or a loud sound or a pleasant sound, you don't tell your ear, go listen to it. They automatically hear. All right. And similarly, when we don't have the control over our tongue, they automatically land up saying good, bad, or ugly things. So when we are doing this, we are trying to have a control on all our senses.
Absolutely, Archana. And like I mentioned even before, it's not just that your ears are going to hear. It's not just that your tongue is going to speak. What research today is finding out is that all these sounds are going to travel down your spinal cord into your musculoskeletal system.
Yes.
And each sound, each word, each consonant, and each vowel creates certain micro movements in our body. Micro movements are like jerky movements. Okay. Now, these are not the movements that are seen by the naked eye. But if you do fast photography, these can be found that if you say a W, across the world, the micro movements made by W are the same.
Same. Yeah.
Across the world, the micro movements made by the word K or K would be the same. So what's happening here is so dramatic that when she's talking about good things we are talking, the vibration that a sound will create, or good sound will create, or a harmonious sound will create harmony and the vibration, not just the sound, because it's moving into your bones, into your muscles and every bit of it. Literally that harmony, when it gets created, it's creating harmony within the system. And when we speak with all these loud noises, or we are having too much of fire in our dhwani or in our talk, then we are dispersing it off in a different way. So literally our words, what we are saying, is having an impact on our musculoskeletal system and into the various, because the blood is made inside the bones, so it also has impact on the blood. And blood being the, how do you say, it's the subtlest thing that's moving inside your body.
You don't feel it, but it's moving every second.
And then if you
every millisecond.
you go back and look at the Emoto, what he said, even if you put a paper across on the bottle, and say love, what is inside the bottle, when you test that water, the structure of the water changes.
Yeah, the
If I
molecules,
somewhere
yes,
I hit you, the structure of the water changes. So
absolutely.
our talk, as Archana said, could either create quarrels, could either create disturbances, or could create sweetness in our life or sugar in our life. And literally, the absence of this sugar in our life is creating diabetes in our body. Literally, the
Literally.
absence of sweet words that we say to ourselves and say to anybody else. So, just thought it was worth mentioning here.
No, it's beautiful. And then again, the fire and the smoke. The mirror which we are talking is the same mirror that when we look at it, we expect a certain kind of beauty to see, a certain kind of welcome gesture to see. And mind you, me, if you are not reflecting that, how is it possible that the world is going to show that to you? You need, because the world is your reflection. If you are not that, how are you expecting the world to become that? It's not possible. It's not possible. And the way I mentioned about the fire, it is capable of destroying everything to ashes. But again, a wet cloth never catches fire. Similarly, that is what Krishna is teaching us. With Krishna consciousness, we have to be wet from in to out to be able to cover ourselves in the Atma, in the Krishna consciousness, in the awareness that everything that is there is a part, a creation of His doing. It is His will, His doing. He's created the elements, our body is made of it. And we have to learn to be wet in the love of Krishna consciousness. We have to be aware, to be, basically smothered in it so that no kind of fire can affect us.
So, would we say over here, when you say being covered or being wet with, and how would you put it down in simple words, basically? Because when we say Krishna consciousness, it can get very confusing. How can I be wet with Krishna consciousness? How can I be, somebody will say, I'm not taking Krishna consciousness and rubbing. It's not a cream that I'm rubbing on my body so that I can be moist outside. I'm not drinking too much of water to be moist inside. So what do you really mean by when you say, the person should be wet with the Krishna consciousness inside and outside? So can you break it down in
Yeah.
simple words for us?
Anu, there is a very beautiful word, the two, three words which are used in Gita. One is Satpurush and one is a Sthit Pragya. Satpurush is the righteous man, the right man. Okay. Now, here in Gita, we are taught by Lord Krishna that a Satpurush will never cross his limits, and he will be very steady and firm and in control of all his senses without thinking about the result of his actions. He is going to be in absolute control and in a place of being indifferent in the situations of, let's say, victory or defeat, in situations of fame and defame, in situations of happiness or sorrow. And being indifferent to all this is being wet in Krishna consciousness, because he is just doing his duty.
So Archana, is it indifference? Because according to Metta, indifference would mean you're numb to, or is it that you are like in balance, so much in,
You're in balance.
yeah,
In balance.
then
It is, but even to be in balance, it might appear to be indifference. A person, like something like if there is, for example, a
can
death.
Can we use the, instead of word indifference, kind of literally means not being different to?
Yeah, not being affected by, basically.
So can we
That's what it means.
not being affected by something like for that person, he stays in balance internally no matter what's happening around him.
Yeah, because Anu, it is so simple that there are times, you know, there are three things that are mentioned, that Kanchan, Kamini, and Kirti. There are three basically things. I'll talk about Kirti, which is fame. It's very simple. A person who is a simpleton suddenly gets a load of fame and he loses it up here.
हाँ, हम बोलते हैं हिंदी में सिर पे चढ़ गया है.
Exactly.
It's gone.
And that fame can be just because of fame. It can be because of money. It can be because of power. It can be suddenly that he was never noticed by anybody and suddenly everybody is noticing him for whatever reason. So that is what Sri Krishna is telling us, that a person, a sthit pragya, a person who is in control of his emotions in all these situations, man apman, labh hani, sukh dukh, that means victory or defeat, happiness or sorrow. It basically means that the fire of sorrow does not burn him, and when it is showering happiness, it does not affect him. He does not get carried away by that situation. That means he's a wet cloth. He is draped.
That in this, Archana,
Yeah.
I see a lot of, I'm married to a banker, so I can talk about banking industry very beautifully. Ex-banker.
Okay.
Every time I saw Vikram coming back home, or I even see other bankers, darling, I'm going to get a promotion. A lot of excitement.
Yes.
Promotion happens, nothing. Now, is this indifference the same as the indifference that you're talking? Or is it the minute they reach there, what I heard most of the bankers saying was, oh, what's next?
Yes. This is not indifference, Anu.
Thank you so much. That's what I want you to bring.
This is not indifference. This is exactly what illusion, that desire, that Maya that we are talking about. That today, if we reach here, we are always wanting that greed, that desire. What next? We are never satisfied.
We are never standing there and even
No, we are not enjoying that present that we get. We
Yeah.
are never happy in that situation. Whereas the Gita is telling that wherever you are kept, rags or palaces, be happy where you are. There's a very beautiful lesson that came with it, that our body, this castle that God has made, it is so beautifully made that, you know, all the openings are so aptly made. We have, you know, there's a bhajan that goes, it's a hymn, बंगला अजब बना दरवेश जिसमें नारायण बोले. Bangla is a castle, a building, a mansion that has been made by God, and it is such a beautiful mansion that there are a lot of lines. I'll just translate it in English and say it is a castle of 9 openings, a castle where the 9 openings are made very aptly, and God forbid, for any reason, any one opening from the 2 nostrils, the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the mouth, the anus, and the urine extraction, the urethra, and the, you know, external organs. Any of the 9 orifices or openings,
opening, it's called.
Openings, any of them, for some reason, any one of them is also blocked, the whole system gets haywire. And the Haim has further that there is an autonomous power inside this mansion, this castle of 9 openings. इस बंगले के 10 दरवाजे, 9 दरवाजे, जिसको चला रहा खिवैया रे. There is a autonomous body which we call the Atma, which is the eternal path. The way we talked that day, that we test just one drop of the ocean, even that is ocean. We don't take the whole ocean to test it. That one drop is ocean. Similarly, every one of us, the way we just mentioned, that whatever we eat anywhere in the world we all make blood, urine, feces, stool, sputum, whatever. All right. So that Atma, that energy, that autonomous power inside us is the power which is running all of us. And that is the Christian conscious awakening. Understanding the power inside you, which is treating you and teaching you to be wet in that consciousness, that you are run by this power, that is being wet in the, the being the wet cloth which will never catch the fire of lust, illusion, ego, or greed. And grief, of course, which Arjun is suffering most from.
Absolutely.
So,
So much for clearing that up, because imagine that we are thinking that, oh, it's like parents telling the child, now you've got these marks. Good, well done. Now what do you want to become? The child is looking at his parents and saying, I haven't become anything.
I worked so hard.
So hard. I still haven't become anything.
No.
Because probably 2 years back, you told me the same thing and I thought I'm going to become today. And this is what I think we are doing to even ourselves. We reach a certain destination, and instead of being wet with what we have achieved,
Yes.
instead of being wet with the present of today, instead of being quenched and completely hydrated with what is coming our way,
We are never satiated, Anu. Never.
we are looking and saying, what next?
Yes, always, always.
What next? And if you are thinking what next, then you are not wet enough and you are going to catch fire. So wet.
And even a small word of somebody is enough of a spark to burn you down to ashes.
Oh yeah.
And what I mean by burn you down to ashes doesn't mean physically, it means emotionally, or even a small word from somebody is a spark enough to just ruin your happiness. You just went, you bought a beautiful sari or a dress or a beautiful pair of glasses for yourself, and you thought you were looking wow. You made your day, you gifted yourself the Diwali gift, all right? And somebody just walks over and says, yeah, but that would have been better. And that is enough to ruin your happiness. Why do you give your switches of happiness to any XYZ?
And I want to tell you here, Archana, we don't give our switches to everyone. The raaz ki baat ye hai, the secret is that we give these switches to our loved ones.
Yeah, of course we give it to others also, Anu. Can you imagine why? Because there is this very beautiful Nirma ad used to come. Uski sari, meri sari se safed kaise? Just to compare and tell everybody, I'll translate this. We have this particular advertisement where we're talking about a particular XYZ detergent. And there's this particular lady who's wearing a nice white crispy dress or a sari. And there's another one who just walks across her who's wearing even a more brighter and shiner or probably brand new sari. And this one is thinking, how is her sari so beautiful and mine is dull? See, all the happiness of wearing that crisp, starched, beautiful attire got ruined. Not even the other person didn't even say anything. She just walked across. Just the visual aid of seeing her made this other person go down. See?
It's about the self-judgment.
Exactly.
So wet in self-judgment rather than love that's creating this drama within us. That we are constantly comparing ourselves to someone of preconceived notions about ourselves. We are not good enough, we're not tall enough, we are not smart enough, we look really old, we look like this, we are like that, we are not rich enough. And you'll often hear it in people's vocabulary. The person has just said, maybe the husband and wife are having a conversation and the woman says, oh, You are telling me to go into that shop? Has our standard of living fallen down that much? Not
Yeah,
fallen down. She doesn't even say fallen down. She says, has our standard of living altered so
so
much?
much.
And the man turns around and says, you're putting me down now. And she's
Yes,
talking about something else, and he's talking about something
something else, altogether different.
altogether different. And he's
Yeah.
convinced that she's putting him down. And that can happen anywhere. Look at somebody who considers himself under poverty line. And the
Yeah.
rich man walks in there and says, मैं तुम्हें ये देना चाहता हूँ. I want to give you this gift. And he says, oh, you're giving it to me because you think I can't afford it, huh?
Yeah. Whereas the rich man never had that intent.
Exactly.
That's it. That's the whole beauty of the situation, that we need to learn to be satiated and happy in this situation wherever we are, the way God has kept us. Okay, now
Wanted you to pick up and tell me what's the dust. Do you have to go?
yeah, actually,
Okay, so we just
little bit in hurry today.
5 minutes.
Festival time, yeah.
Tandoori chicken and fish. If all of you want to eat tasty food, आज अर्चना के घर पहुंच जाओ शाम.
Please, most welcome, each and everyone, everybody invited.
So we'll let her go in next 5 minutes. She just needs to clear one more doubt in my head.
Yes.
She's kept speaking about the dust. So I understood what's wet now. But what's the dust about?
Lust.
And
The
dust.
different degrees of lust.
What is that lust? So explain in those terms, what really over here are they calling lust? Is it like sexual lust? Is
No,
it like
no,
greed?
no.
What is this lust?
Greed, basically greed. Now, when a child, we were discussing, who's caged in the embryo, is covered by the embryo, the only thing was there that he wants to get out of that cage. That was the covering, that embryo was the covering which the baby had, where it could not move. And that situation is compared to trees. Now, just remember, the trees appear to be free on top. They sway, they move, they dance to the song of wind, but they are rooted, they are bound, they are caught by the lust. They are tied down, they are not free, they are caged. All right. Similarly, the different degrees. Then we talk about the mirrors which are covered by dust. That is another degree where we compare them to the birds and animals. Thinking of the birds and animals where their only aim of birth that they have taken is to procreate. That is it. They don't have any intelligence, they don't have any they know how to like procreate, bring up children. That's it, their babies, and then they go. All right. Now their lust is just completely sexual. They do not rise above that. Animals don't think more than that. Khana pina bhogna tinka pashu saman, that's what they say. Eating, feeding, growing, procreating, and that is what the life is. That's their limitation, that's their limits. And the third, which we had talked about, the smoke covering the fire, that was the most varied degree which is compared to the human beings. That's why when we talked about the fire which was there inside us, Chatragni, which is capable of digesting the food, and the fire of lust, greed, desire, which burns us to the extent that even looking at somebody else being prosperous, or somebody else attaining heights which we might just think about, makes us envious and jealous with fire. That is our lust as humans. So the different degrees, and Gita is just telling us one way which we remember talking about was the repetition of the holy chants, where our senses are converged to being towards inwardly, antarmukhi, what we call. So that when our senses are not looking outwardly, looking at the, let's say, the prosperity, the fame, the money, or the other gains of other people, and our senses are towards inside, we have the control on them. That is one part. And when our senses are outwardly, bahirmukhi, that means we have no control on them. And then there is a sentence that comes in Gita where Arjun actually tells Sri Krishna that my senses are capable of almost raping me, much against my desire. They are dragging me left, right, and center. That is when Sri Krishna is telling him that a Sat Purush, a Sthit Pragya, is capable of having that control on his senses, because senses are like, they are even faster than wind, especially your man. It has a speed. You are sitting here thinking of America, you're sitting here, your mind is somewhere. It is not under your control. That is what Krishna is trying to tell us, that get all your senses together, control them, and to control them you have to have the control on your mind.
So, Archana, I don't like the word control. That's just personally.
Okay.
Because control sounds like a lot of Bhagavad Gita says that we don't, and a lot of gurus say that we don't have control over anything other than our breath.
No, we have no control on our breath also.
Exactly. That also can go. Now,
Yeah.
the point is, how can we use another interesting word there instead of control so that it's more empowering? Control more sounds like I've got to, people are there who think that they have to be control freaks. They control
Okay.
everything, including other people's thoughts. Like I said once before.
Okay.
So
Okay.
controlling to them means, how can I suppress someone? How can I suppress my feelings? How can I suppress my desires rather than having mastery over it? What can be the real word where we can use, where there is what Archana is trying to say, beautiful people, is that, like she said, we don't even have control over our breath.
We don't.
Asking you to control anything. We're just saying,
Okay. No, it is not control per se, as the word control has its meaning. It
yes,
means that we are capable of having some kind of limit, some kind of, let's say, I'm trying to look for a different word for it.
yeah. So maybe if we don't get it right now, we'll give it to you in the next time.
Yeah, I'll have to look for something more
Empowering.
besides controlling. Yeah, or cleansing our senses. That can be used
No,
there.
cleansing would.
But cleanse is cleaning, and it's not nigra. Nigra is the word in Hindi, actually.
Yeah. So
Uh,
according to, let me put it, what she's trying to say, hey, we're not in control of even our breath. As long as we're alive, we at least can control how many breaths we are taking, what we are doing, and a lot of work with basically pacing our breath up and down to having good health. When Archana is talking about control, she's saying, how can we master our senses, wherein we can be in complete balance, neither above, neither below, where we can be in complete harmony, like,
yeah, we can call it balance. Balance is the right word, probably. Yeah.
are in complete, they're not going tick tock, tick tock, tick tock like this. They are
Yeah.
like this. They are like in a plateau.
Harmony, absolute harmony, basically.
How can we bring about complete harmony or balance would be the, actually, for you to understand the right word, rather than if we leave you with that control, I might just find tomorrow
Yeah.
everybody and saying that's what Bhagavad
No,
Gita taught us.
no, no,
No.
no. It's not that control. It is basically, again, telling, it's something like, you don't let a below 18-year child sit and watch porn. What do you call that? That is checking. That is checking. You're checking.
Being someone accountable.
Yeah. That is something like that. So in the same way, we are accountable for our senses.
In fact, as a joke, Archana, since you mentioned this, if you
Okay.
if you were in my space, I would have said, give all the children to watch porn because they came naked on this earth and they wouldn't understand anything that's going on there. It's our that creates so much of concoction. Nothing's wrong, right, including porn by itself. What right, how you wanted to use it and how
Exactly.
it to project it, because if the whole world is your reflection, then how you're looking at porn is also your reflection. I was having a little chat with Archana out of frustration before we came online. Must tell you about it. My maid did not want to feed me, but said to me, "Saab, aaj tabiyat theek nahi thi saab ki." So my husband is not, your husband was not feeling well. And I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." He didn't eat anything. I said, "Okay." He just ate 2 eggs and 1 bread. So I said, what more was he supposed to eat in the breakfast now? And I called her very sheepishly 2 hours later and said, there is a difference between the way you're seeing man or woman. I don't want you to do this ever again. But today, by the end of this chat, I realized I was doing the difference between man and a woman. And that's why I saw that difference. A big opening for me with this workshop or the seminar that we've had right now, because I will check in my space. Why am I making the man an authority? And why am I making myself
Exactly.
less?
Exactly.
I feeling that she has treated me any differently than she's treated my husband. This is the thought of a day. Think about it. We just need to get balance, nothing outside or inside. Just like our body temperature, always inside is the same, no matter what's the temperature outside,
And wherever we are placed.
wherever we are across the world. I think that
Exactly.
was the complete finding for me today. Thank you, Archana, completely.
Thank you very much.
But
Thank you.
before we go, दिवाली का सिग्निफिकेंस तो बता दो, कल है
Okay. I was thinking we'll do a full thing on Diwali, but never so mind.
कल.
Probably, but definitely today it happens to be Choti Diwali, and the significance of lighting five diyas is very important, especially placing the diyas on the crossroads, placing one diya under the south direction of your water and the water, wherever the tap is. And then one is where your holy plant of tulsi is, basil is placed, and of course in your temple, and two main diyas which are lit on the front doors for the welcome. Diwali, as you all know, is the occasion where Sri Ram comes back home after 14 years of exile or banishment from his kingdom. And that is the occasion where he has fought over the demon Ravan and his brothers and won back his wife Sita, who was kidnapped by Ravan. So that is the main essence, and we'll talk about the significance of lighting of diyas or candles on Diwali, because that's a very beautiful short story which we'll do tomorrow.
Wonderful. So she's committing for tomorrow, guys.
I am. Diwali is special. I need to connect to all of you. I need to shower all my blessings to everybody who is listening and who's not listening, to be blessed and live in Krishna consciousness and have a great Ram Diwali. Thank you.
Absolutely. So ऐसे है, कल अर्चना सबको शावर करेंगी blessings के साथ. Archana will be showering everybody with the blessings, and I will be busy collecting all.
God bless you, Anu. Surely. Why not?
Namaste. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Namaste. Great. Bye.